Good afternoon. My name is Nathan Stelter, president here at the Stelter Company. And thank you, as always, for joining us for our webinar today, How to Love Your Donors in the Philanthropic Psychology Way, presented by Jen Shang, who's actually professor of philanthropic psychology and co-director and co-founder of the Institute for Sustainable Philanthropy. I'll get back to introducing Jen in just a minute, but first I'd like to say just a couple words about our webinar series. As an industry leader in plan giving marketing, Stelter has always been committed to providing innovative solutions and education for industry. We're always happy to host these complimentary webinars today, as well as a whole slate of webinars throughout the year. Today's webinar is actually our 11th in our 2021 series, our second to last. We have just one more after today, and that will be from renowned gift planner, past chair of the CGP board, editor of Plan Giving Today, Phil Purcell. He'll be joining us December 8th, just a couple weeks, to help you get your board on board with Plan Giving. So you can register, whether this is your first time on our webinar series, or you've been a steady participant. You can always register for his webinar and any webinars, as well as access our archive of webinars from this last year and before from Russell James, Catherine Myrie, Adrian Sargent, and so forth at www.stelter.com/webinars. As always, as we get closer to the December 8th date, we will be sending out an invitation as that date nears. So now back to today's webinar and our terrific presenter, Jen Shang. You're really in for a treat today, as Jen, as I mentioned, is the co-founder and co-director of the Institute for Sustainable Philanthropy. She's also the world's first PhD in philanthropy and only philanthropic psychologist. Her research has been covered in the New York Times, BBC, The Guardian, The Chronicle, Philanthropy, Advancing Philanthropy, and the Nonprofit Times. Jen has been published in numerous academic journals, including the Journal of Marketing Research, Marketing Science, Nonprofit and Voluntary Sector Quarterly, and Nonprofit Management and Leadership. The research has been funded by the Society of Judgment and Decision Making, the National Science Foundation, the Aspen Institute, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, the Association of Fundraising Professionals, and the Hewlett Foundation. I am very excited to introduce and hand over the reins for the rest of the hour to Jen Shang. Jen, it is all yours.
Thank you very much, Nathan. It's always nice to see your face. And oh, now your face is gone. Thank you very much, everybody. It's very nice to see you here. I see there are more than 200 people here, so very welcome. As you can probably tell from the lighting, I'm here already in the evening time, 6 p.m. in the evening in the UK. And I am here today to talk to you about how to love your donors, but not in any other way, in the philanthropic psychology way. So given that's what we're going to talk about, it's probably good practice to simply define what philanthropic psychology is. And if you have been in the philanthropic sector for a little while, you would probably have already known that philanthropy, the Greek root of that word, means love of humankind. Phil is the love portion and anthropy is humankind. And psychology also has a Greek root, and that is the study of the human soul or the human psyche, as ancients would say it. In modern day psychology, I like to focus on our sense of who we are and how we express that. And literally, when you put the Greek root of these two words together, philanthropic psychology is the study of how people love humankind, or simply how people love people. And yes, if you work for animal charities or planet protection of the environment, immediately I would get questions about, Jen, but what about animals? And that's a fair question. And always what I say is, you know, being a pessimistic, I know I've only got 30 years to live. So I would like to think that if one person can figure out how people can love people, that is quite a lot to do already. So I have a lot of colleagues at the Institute who love planets and animals. And we spend a lot of time studying how those charities work. So yes, it is applicable to how humans love animals too. But the more optimistic part of me said, you know what, if we can generate a piece of science that can help people love that one person who have hurt them most in their life, then that kind of science can actually make a difference for one person, for a group of people, or for the planet. So that is kind of what I set myself the next 30 years of my life to do, really, is to explore that kind of science. How can we grow people's love to the point that they can love the one person who they think have hurt them most in their lives. So if we go just a little bit deeper into this people love people science, I want to draw your attention to when we talk about people love people, the second people. You know, often in philanthropy, we're all good, kind-hearted people coming into the sector trying to make a difference for other people. So often when we say people love people, we actually don't mean people love people. We meant people love other people. So we kind of take ourselves out of the picture and think, oh, we're doing such an altruistic thing. I love other people. And that's not what philanthropic psychology is about. Philanthropic psychology is about exploring how we love ourselves as well as how we love other people. And why is that important? Because that is what makes love sustainable. We have done research after research after research after research showing that helping other people actually help ourselves feel better about our own lives. And when we feel better, our giving is more sustainable. So that is the first kind of focus that philanthropic psychology always have. That is when we try to understand how donors love people and how that love expressed through giving, we don't take the love of themselves out of the picture. We always have measurements to explore how people love themselves. And the next thing that we want to explore in depth in philanthropic psychology is who the people are. Are people loving as a mom, as a dad, as a grandma, as a granddad, as an animal lover, or as someone who have been hurted in the past? What is the identity that people are loving out of? And finally, we want to define what love means when it comes to giving. So that, in a nutshell, is what philanthropic psychology is about. So then when we apply these concepts into fundraising, what we have learned is that it fundamentally changed the way we think about fundraising and how to do fundraising. If you want to have more in-depth look into the concepts of philanthropic psychology, we have courses through the Institute for Sustainable Philanthropy that you can join. If you want to explore how reasonably simple philanthropic psychology concepts can be applied to fundraising copywriting, again, there's a different course that you can explore. That's 4 weeks. The certificate in philanthropic psychology is 8 weeks, and equally how these concepts can be applied into legacy giving. And that again is a 4-week course. So what you see today in this presentation are simply examples of how philanthropic psychology can be used and have been used by ourselves and by many of our alumni. And the reason why we're committed to this approach is because we have learned from these organizations that when these organizations get to know their donors better, get to build a long-lasting, high-quality relationship with them, their giving can sustainably double over the years. So it's not depleting the pool of giving, but to grow it as we raise money. So in a very, very simple nutshell way, how does philanthropic psychology change fundraising? It changes it by encouraging us to do thoughtful fundraising that grow deep love. So what is deep love? How do we define deep love? Well, the kind of love that connects and comforts is what we call deep love. Jen shared with me that before even the webinar started, we received some questions. And one of the questions is, how can we make friends and how can we raise money without making people feel that we're manipulating them? And the answer is we don't. We don't manipulate them. We make friends. We connect with them. We comfort them. We genuinely touching their heart to the point that giving is such a natural thing for them to do. There is no other option. But it takes us genuinely connecting with the people that we're going to raise money from, because that we are not presenting the raising of money as an action to them. We're presenting it as an opportunity for them to connect and comfort. So just to share with you a feeling of what connection and comfort can mean, I'm going to show you a little video. In this video, every single thing that you see are almost exact quotes from people, except there one slide with parentheses where we added a little transition for you. But all of them are donor quotes. But these are not any random donor quotes that you send out survey, you get back and you put onto a screen. These are donor quotes we thematically coded into 30 different dimensions after we analyze the data, after we know what are the factors that are driving giving, what are the factors that are driving how good people feel about giving, and how do the emotions transition in determining why people want to give and what giving could potentially mean to them. So we will show you the video first, and you just take a read of the quotes and have a think about the difference that giving makes in these people's lives. When the video first starts, you would see the organization's logo and you will begin to see the quotes. Music will begin to show in the third slide. So don't worry if you don't hear anything until the third slide. So get used to the reading and remember everything are direct quotes from donors of this organization. Every time I watch the video, I get rather emotional. It's just the love that these people carry for animals is just amazing. And when we talk about thoughtless fundraising or shallow fundraising, that's the kind of fundraising that I think about when they touch on anger and they touch on suffering and they touch on anger and they touch on suffering. It's just one sad story after another, one sad story after another. And if you think back into this video, there is something much, much, much deeper than the suffering of animals that people are connecting to when they give money. When they give money to the RSPCA, they are pained by the suffering of the animals. and they're pained by the fact that they're still out there suffering, like they can't bear that pain. That pain is what caused anger. So if we only connect to anger, or even we connect to sadness, and not acknowledging just how much pain and aching that people are sustaining, in order not to look away, but still stay in the RSPCA community and still help despite of that personal pain and aching that they feel in their heart, then any money we raise would have been manipulating people into giving. Because for them, it is not necessarily just anger, and it's not just necessarily just sadness, it's the pain that led to it. And if we were going to love our donors in the same way that we love our animals, we would connect to that pain and provide some comfort and acknowledge that when my puppy body ached and itched, someone with an animal heart as big as yours come along. It's connecting that pain of the human heart with the pain of the animal heart, and giving them the opportunity to bring that joy of a soft coat and a wagging tail, of scrambling, not cowering, of a loyal heart beating with love and happiness, is the connection of the pain of the human heart and the pain of the puppy heart and the joy of the puppy heart and the beating of love and happiness of the human heart that deep and thoughtful fundraising are building in this world. So that is the kind of connection that we're trying to help people make. And guess what? When we make that connection, what people see in this world is not just happy animals with their forever home. It's they will have faith in humanity. They will see the essence of what being human meant to them. They will cross their boundaries from loving animals to going back and loving their own humanity. That's what charity is about. That's what giving is about. That's what joy comes from. It's coming from that deep, deep connecting place. Are we shying away from the suffering of the animals when we communicate in this way? Of course we're not. Having the picture right on the envelope and acknowledge the aching and the itching in their heart and in our heart, we are not shying away from the pain, but we envelope it with the power of changing that pain into joy. And that's what giving is about. Why do we think doing this thing could potentially be good? Because it brings joy and love, not just to the animals, but to our own heart. You can bring joy and love to animals this Christmas. You can make a difference. They can feel good about themselves. And when we do this to anybody, for anybody who need this, giving follows. So this is a split A/B email test that we did with the USA for UNHCR. I know Stelter also works with them. Absolutely outstanding team. Love working with them, breaking all kinds of boundaries in what fundraising is about. So in telling the story of little Walid, we can go with the same old of Walid suffers from fluid in the brain. I can't afford to treat him, said Walid's dad. Or we can say, Walid's parents have always adored their little boy. Even as they fled their bummed out home, his smile brightened their days. His boundless zest for life gave them the strength to keep going. And then recently, the family received devastating news. Walid was diagnosed with fluid in his brain. He has difficulty speaking and learning. When we love our donors in this way, we allow them to connect more to the love that the parents experienced with the little boy. They allow them to connect with that warmth that this seemingly hopeless, helpless little boy suffering in refugee camps with fluid in his brain. We're allowing donors to connect with that little boy's love for his parents. The copy on the right raised 5% more money than the copy on the left, but that is because this is only when they started to test this kind of approach. As they progress in their approach, in their testing now, their highest performance A-B split in this way, it increased giving by 36%. So this is not just sentimental, soft, positive fundraising. This is hard, deep, love-driven increase sustainably how much people give. And when people give in this way, it's not only the money they get. At the moment, every month, they share writings from their donors that are voluntarily provided to them, where the donors would say, you know what, I've given over all these many years to so many charities. None have spoken with your kindness to us. None have spoken with your thoughtfulness to us. And guess, where are kindness and thoughtfulness, where are these words coming from? Donors, when we ask them, what words do you use to describe yourself? Kindness and thoughtfulness are the words donors use to describe themselves. And now when we communicate with them in this way, they use the same words they use to describe themselves, describe this charity that they give to. And that's the difference deep fundraising makes. And guess what? If they raise 36% more for little Walid, be my guest. If anybody out there in the world call that a manipulation, you tell them, yes, I do manipulation. So what? I wish I could manipulate everybody to give every last dollars, pounds, shillings, whatever they use to little Walid. There's absolutely no shame, no guilt, no nothing for loving people, to give money and to help people in need. So pride in fundraising, feeling good about doing what you do, knowing that you, fundraisers, reading the most heartbreaking story from the field and put them into a blank piece of paper and trying to convince your donors to love with nothing other than words, pictures, sometimes with and sometimes without color. That is the hardest job on the planet. And you do it day in and day out in growing love. There's nobody out there can ever call you manipulating anybody when you use love-based approach to raise money. And guess what? You should raise the last bit of money out of the people who just want to love this little Walid. And of course, it is not just the money that we're after. The care that we give to our donors shouldn't be conditional on whether they give to us or not. In our packs that we send out to them, we should give them a little bit of love, whether they give or not. This is by far my favorite examples ever. Lisa Sargent, my hero, my love. It's like, you put Lisa anywhere, I am in, I'm with her. This is a pack that she wrote for Chokre, Ireland, the largest Catholic organization in Ireland. Actually, they are probably the largest charity too. This is the insert into a warm appeal that they sent out last year. This insert said, "When icy winds blow, may you feel connected. Always. Always. Yes, they don't shy away from the cruelty of the winter, and you can look at this picture and feel cold, but what do they have in mind is, what do you feel? Donors, how do you feel when you look at this picture? Can we give you a feeling of being connected, whether you make your donation or not? This is a card people can keep, whether they make a donation or not. Yes, it only increased giving 8% in comparison to previous campaign of the same nature. But this is the highest performing campaign. at this time, in this time period in the year, that the organization has ever received. And they have been increasing their giving year after year after year after year, now almost for 10 years. So when you use this approach to increase money, yes, you can measure the 8% here and the 9% here and the 10% here, but the real magic of it is that 10 years on, they are still increasing, and they're increasing still, even from people who give money 25 years ago. Why? Because they keep telling people, if you can still weep at injustice, you are enough. It's not about the money you give. It's not just about the money you give. It is so much more than the money you give. It is the tears that you shed for these people for all these years. And that is why we love you, donors. Whether you give this time or not, it really does not matter. And it's the kind of love that breaks in-group and out-group boundaries, like I shared with you already. It makes donors feel like they're part of the organization. It makes the organization feel like they're part of the donors. It helps people to love animals, love people who love animals, love other people who don't love animals, restore their sense of loving people through their love of animals. All those things are boundary breaking. And guess what happens when people break that boundary and embrace the organization to be part of who they are? When they leave legacies to you after their life ends, they're not leaving money to other people. They're leaving money to themselves so that their life can live on. So this example is an example where I'm going to show you how two different kinds of love in the context of in-group and out-group can transition. This is the kind of love we teach in our certificate in philanthropic psychology. So for today, just very, very simply, companion love is the kind of love that we can have for people we like and for people who are similar to us, versus compassionate love is the kind of love that we give for people who are different from us, who we don't feel like we can start by connecting us as similar people. So we cross boundary lines to love them. And attachment love is the kind of love that builds over a very, very long time. That's the kind of love where there's absolutely nothing else in the world that you can count on. You still can count on that kind of love. There are different types of love that we are building in fundraising communications. And the example next that I'm going to show you is just in one simple relationship between a fundraiser and a donor. It's from a little orphanage in Mexico. It's Beth Beal taking care of the CEO of that organization, taking care of one donor that is from a San Diego church. So this donor learned about Vida Jova through her church several years ago, and she started by making a donation of $100 or so. Beth, being Beth, extremely personable person. And if you have never met Beth and if you have never heard about this organization, I strongly encourage you to make any donation at all, so you can get Beth's newsletter. I just love reading her newsletter. Her newsletter made my day. Every single time I read her newsletter, I just feels like it's the new coat of worms that I'm wearing. So yeah, if you would like to be embraced with warmth or cool air or freshness or whatever, anything lovely, sign up to her newsletter, make her donations, and connect with her. She's just such a big heart. So being Beth, she didn't recognize this donor's name. She rang her and discovered that this donor actually loved to be called. And after Beth spoke to her a few times, she also learned that this donor also loves actual notes. So then Beth started to write her actual notes. And guess what happens? This donor then began to surprise Beth with birthday gifts and Christmas gift, and they now start to have lunch together. And guess how the giving grew from this one person? It's going from 500 to 1,000 to 5,000, and last month it was 10,000. It's the connection, it's the love, and money just can't help. It's just like, where else would my money go? It's just so obvious. But look at how Beth communicates with her people. This is the kind of stuff you get if you sign up to Beth's little orphanage and read about her people. And see this little girl, no more hunger for this cutie pie, thanks to you. And then it goes on a 4-page newsletter. But the way Beth talk about life and the way Beth built love is just so deep that it takes you to a place that you just can't get to otherwise. So in this little portion of the newsletter, she's talking about Maria. And I'll read this out. I know it's a little blurry. Every time I do a presentation, somehow the clear PDF turns blurry. So I might as well just read it for you. So thanks to you, Maria now gets plenty of nutritious, delicious food each and every day. When she first came to the orphanage, Maria, like all the kids, didn't trust there would be any meal beyond this one. She gobbled, hoarded, anxiously asked for more, more, more. But with time, Maria is learning to trust there will be food tomorrow, just as there's food today. Such trust is a pretty extraordinary thing, and that is precisely what you make possible for Maria. The world used to be hard-edged and cruel for Maria. Now, thanks to you, this little girl's world is as sweet as a ripe mango and as comforting as chicken soup. You can taste the love. You can taste the sweetness, just in words, nothing more. Jen, I think I clicked one click too fast. Good. And Beth, just because she's got chicken soup, just because she's got ripe mango, doesn't mean she doesn't touch on the most complex problems in education. All over the world, kids go to school hungry, traumatized, and scared. Conditions like these make learning almost impossible because the child is stuck in survival mode. So how do they overcome it? They have the experts in their orphanage who are specialized to help traumatized children to learn at school. So when they go to school, they don't just go to school, they learn at school. That's how she communicates expertise. And when she tells people how their love can conquer deep problems, she's got a pair of these little brothers and sisters who arrived at the orphanage in 2013. And they're telling the donors, you're doing such a phenomenal job of raising these precious kids. From somebody with no family at all to two brother and sister know about love. They know because of you. Just think about this. The first time when Daniel and her sister learned to give a hug to each other. That in and of itself is a moment made. That's an end moment. They're nothing. They don't need to grow up to be anything. Doctors, shopkeepers, assistant, nobody cares. A pair of orphans learned to hug each other as a brother and as a sister. I'm sure when that donor first gave to this orphanage, she would not have said either Beth is part of her family or these children as anybody even close. There's somebody in Mexico, cross the border, here's my church, I was told about this. But as her giving grows, the way she describes her relationship with the orphanage also changes. Today, every time when Beth talked about this donor, the donor would always say, "Oh, tell me, how is my little orphanage doing?" Is her little orphanage now. It's not Beth's orphanage. It's not Daniel's orphanage. It's not a Mexican orphanage. It's not an orphanage across the border. It's not a out-group orphanage. This orphanage now, not just these children. It's easy to say, oh, these are my children, direct connections. No, that's not what she said. She said, my little orphanage. This cross-bordered, locked out-group organization now is my little orphanage. That's the kind of love we're building. And the kind of love that always wins. I just love this kind of love. Where do you find this kind of love? When cancer hits young people and their families. We face the cancer together. We are the charity that helps children and young people and their families find the strength to face whatever cancer throws at me. But we're way more than that. And you, donors, you are way more than that. They did this piece of research with us. We want them to think, when you say face it together, what would you like your supporter to think and to feel? Do they just feel about the facing, or do they feel when donors throw fear, I protect with love? When cancer throws financial turmoil, I hand in money. When cancer throws trembling fear, I kick it right back with waves of kindness and caring. When it comes to my love for young life versus cancer, cancer can never win. Cancer can never take love away from life. That's what my giving means to these young people. For the families, love them. For the social workers who help them, the donors are right in the midst of it. The social worker might say, I might be the one welcoming them into their home away from home. This is what this charity does. They set up homes right outside of specialized children's cancer hospital. So when people travel hundreds of miles to this hospital, they as a family have a place to stay. But look at what they said next. But without you opening your heart to them, I won't have a door to open for them in the first place. So it's not like the mom is the in-group, the social worker is the in-group, we are the in-group taking care of the donors. Without the taking care of the child, without the donors, we've got nothing. We've not even got a door that we can open. They are right in the midst of it. And when we think about the donor in this way, we transform everything we say and everything we think about. Whatever love you have for these people, for these young lives, I promise the social worker, I promise I will match it with mine. So forget about doubling, tripling, quadrupling, end of year appeals. Let's not match money. Let's match love. Let's match love genuinely. And I will tell you, if you dare to fake this or copy this without the love actually felt in your heart, without feeling confident and genuine about that love that you're going to match with your donors, they're going to smell fakeness and they're going to hate you. So don't try to copy these things without putting your heart into it. Really, really, really care for them and write from your heart. Connect with that raw connection of yours, that raw feeling of yours. If that's how Sammy wants to connect to you, that's how you talk. And if your Ernie talks in differently, in a different demographics group talking the way he talks. Whatever difference you want to make for these young lives, I promise I will match it with mine. But don't just say these words, and don't just say it once at the end of your year, and don't say it just because you need the money to make your balance sheet by the end of this calendar year. You say it because you want to love your donors, you feel the love for your donors, and you want them to feel they don't have to give to fight for cancer or fight to win. Cancer can never take their amazing love away from the young lives. You do it day in and day out, and in every communication you have, whether it's appeals, it's newsletters, it's thank yous, it's an acknowledgement, you just love them. And what happens when you love them in this way? Even with the first integrated appeal that you can make, this organization did our research last year, this time. The reason why they did it is because they need to get everything they can possibly learn from that survey into their Christmas appeal. And guess what happened with their Christmas appeal? 14, 27, 13, 24% increase in different areas. And best of all, during the COVID pandemic, they've had the best Christmas appeal that this organization have ever in the history of its fundraising. That's the power of love. Doubling in giving in one Thanksgiving appeal, repeated in major gift giving events. It's sustainable. It doesn't have to be one-time doubling. You can repeatedly double, but what does it take? It takes Becky to spend 6 months. Every single communication she sends out, she put her heart out, right out in there with the donors, to the point that donors would recognize the difference in her writing so much when they come and meet with her. They ask her, Becky, you are different from any other organizations. You make me feel your heart. Are you okay doing that day in and day out for us? Because we can feel that you are putting your heart on the table in every communication you did. When we put our heart into our writing, there is no way that the donors are not going to feel it. And there's no way they're not going to come back and ask you, Becky, just tell me, what else can I do to help you? I just want to help you. When you show me your heart in your communications and I can recognize that, I'm going to give you mine. I'm not just going to give you my money. I'm just going to give you my heart. And if you think this is still so soft, what happens to people when we love people this way? This is 4 years of dedicated commitment into talking to their donors this way. In the survey, we asked before and after, year 1 versus year 4. What's people's intention to give? What's people's intention to increase? What's people's intention to leave a legacy? What's people's intention to leave a monthly giving? What's people's intention to fundraise? The percentage that you see here is the percentage of increase in how much better the same amount of giving make people feel. 4 years later, the exact same intention to continue to give make people feel twice as connected with the course, twice as competent in making a difference, 3 times more autonomous in having a voice, 4 times feeling 4 times in feeling they're autonomous when they try to raise money as a fundraiser for the organization. it's not just the money, it's how much better people feel from the same amount of money that they give. 3 times more 4 years later. Good feelings, an increase in good feelings is now measurable. Why aren't there numbers everywhere? We only are showing you statistically significant increases. All the other increases, they haven't reached statistical significance yet. So we're not going to brag about things that we can't create. Leave a legacy, probably going to take more than 4 years. Monthly giving, it becomes so habitual. Whatever you do is probably not going to show as much increase as if people give cash and they increase every single time. But does it mean that we can't ever get there? No, we just have to get smarter and better in our science of how they do it. So guess what? For the next wave, we're going to explore ways that's going to specifically designed to help people feel better about leaving a legacy and continue with their monthly giving. So now, for the mighty warriors in this audience, my challenge to you is, would you like to write just like them? And I can tell you that it is 100% possible. You can write like this. Can you believe it's been 12 months? Thank goodness for our pets providing essential comfort since forever. So when you read this headline, it's not about the love we give our pets. It's about the love that pets give to us since forever. So what is our attention? Our attention is on the people who read the letter. It's not just the big and ginormous and the high art opera. I love the lyric opera Chicago as much as a sunflower loves the sun. You don't even have to make these things up. We get this from surveys, right? We rank them. So we know this kind of communication, this kind of stories is going to make a difference. It doesn't take your original creativity. You just have to know how your donors are feeling about themselves. Yes, not everyone can write like Violet. I will let you read. But after this one, I will show you something is utterly possible. But I will shut up so you can read this beautiful poem. So now, is it possible for someone to discover this heart and connect with this way of writing if they have never, ever done it before? And the answer is absolutely yes. So this is a piece of writing done by David. He participated in our certificate in fundraising copywriting. By about week 2, after seeing all the stories that we're showing him that are being told by other people in his class, this is what he wrote. None edited, not a single word. Take a read and see if the heart is on the table. So if you ask any of the people that I shared your example with, does this take a lot of energy? And the honest answer is always going to be yes. But then in the same breath, they would say, I'll never write in any other way. And that's the end. You've got 6 minutes for questions.
Hi, Jen. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
We do have some questions. Quite a few of them are around the idea that most of what you've spoken about is children without homes and hungry, abused, also animals that have been abused. And things are very touching and possibly people might say easier to get people to love and show compassion for. Wondering if you can give any advice for the types of organizations that don't have that heartstring type mission to use in their appeals. Like I would say like maybe higher education, arts and culture, things like that. Do you have any advice?
Absolutely. There's we work with arts and culture, and we also work with higher education, and we also work with vintage car museums. It's not about the thing that we do. It's like the minute we say higher education, we've lost the life. It's not about higher education. It's about that 20-year-old whose mom is just diagnosed with cancer and who lost his bar job because all the bars are closed because of COVID, that he needed to make it to the next semester. That's what we're writing about, and that's who we're writing for. It's about that granddad who is desperately trying to save that vintage car for his grandson. And it's about human connections. I mean, the story that comes to mind, whether it's a children's hospital, it is homeless shelter, it's higher education, it's art. I'll just give you this one example where a Jewish grandma is taking her daughter first time back to Israel. The daughter has never had any connection with the Jewish life, and they have never been able to raise her in a Jewish culture. But they were able to endow this little plate on the wall of that educational establishment. And this grandma took that little daughter to there and point to her name. And the little granddaughter said, "Wow, I belong here." You know, that moment, I don't think anybody else need to be educated. When the grandma heard that from her granddaughter, that was enough for her. And those are the moments that we need to discover for our donors. The moments that in and of themselves are enough.
I have someone comment, we have to show more heart in our work directly and empathetically. We get lost in the day-to-day and we even bore ourselves.
And it's not your fault. The speed is too fast and the atmosphere often is too chaotic. I mean, even with organizations where they've decided, I mean, we've got organizations where they're so committed to the heart that they send their entire team to our courses, like 25 people, all in, including the CEO. They all take the course. 20 months later, it still takes energy to keep the heart going. It still takes fresh new data to keep the heart going. But that is like, even if you're that committed, you will still have to battle the business and the chaos of the schedules. It's just always going to be there. So it has to be this choice on a day-to-day basis. But at the same time, just remember that this is hard. There's no other way about it. And it is hard for one person to keep this up, and it's hard for a whole team to keep it up. But why would we be in fundraising otherwise? I mean, this is why we're here. If we don't do this, we might as well not fundraise.
Well, and I will attest, the courses you mentioned, I know we've just had a couple of our staff, but our director of content and one of our strategists go through them, and absolutely transformational, just life-changing and amazing. And looking forward to having some more folks on our team go through them. But, to your point around, again, send the whole staff through, but you have to work on this. There was a question from Christina here about how do you work with mission or program staff to get these stories? Because sometimes there's this disconnect in getting these stories. Any suggestions in your work or that you would say?
Absolutely. It's always important to get the mission team on board. Organizational wide webinars, buy-ins from higher ups definitely help, especially hosting storytelling sessions with your staff. Let staff tell the stories from their heart and let them connect with what fundraising is about. It is, like the best moment that I had with a CEO from an organization who is a missionary organization where they think missions are good and fundraising is necessary evil. So let's do mission, right? And then after they see the results, man, the CEO, he just stared at my chart and said, Jen, when you say thanking people, you don't mean thank them for their money, do you? You meant thank them for who they are. And once he said that, he sent his entire team to training. He's like, well, I want this for my organization. I want everybody who gives to my organization feel like they are taken care of the best by us. Sorry. Way to go, right? I couldn't even say that. He came up with it on his own.
Nice. We're out of time, but I did want to ask this one other question that was sent in early on in the presentation. It's actually from Russell James. I'm sure most people on the call know Russell. First, he says he loves your research. It's very powerful. And he has a question for you. Are the decision-making processes for larger lifetime investment gifts from wealth different than those used for the small, quick reaction gifts from disposable income that we typically test in our field experiments?
It depends. Some are different, some are the same. They are lower level survival kind of emotions like hunger and shelter, warmth, that are more reactive disasters. But the kind of examples that I showed you, when Wali's parents saw the boundless zest in their little boy's heart, that is not different with major gift. It's the same genuine long-term love that connect and connect and connect and connect and connect and connect. That's what makes it sustainable.
I love your comment about the gentleman leaving his money and his will, and how he wasn't leaving it really to the organization. He was leaving it to himself. He was leaving it because that's what he wanted his legacy to be.
Absolutely.
That was very powerful.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, we are over our time. We didn't get to all the questions. If you do have an additional question, you can reach out to Jen. Her email is on the screen, jen@philanthropy-institute.org.uk. You can also reach out to Nathan or myself if you have questions about Stelter, our services, or our webinar series. So be sure to do that. And we did record today, and I will have the recording and the handouts available for you by Friday. I will be sending out an email to everyone who attended and registered, and let you know where to go and when you can access those. So be on the lookout for that. Thank you so much. I think we had about 250 people join us, Jen. It was a wonderful hour. Thanks so much for being here with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Anybody want examples from arts museums, Planet, just email me. Got tons.
That's great. Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Yeah.
And like Nathan said, we
Yeah.
just have one more webinar left this year. So head to our website to sign up for that. We'll also send an invitation out. So look for that.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, guys.
Thank
Hope everyone
you.
has a good afternoon. We'll see you next time.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.